on the court. Call today to receive exclusive savings on the LASIK you can trust at Cornerstone. Advanced technology, affordable pricing, and more 5-star reviews. Schedule your free LASIK consultation online at LASIKrochester.com or call or text 585-420-8158. It's LASIK for the win.
WYSL.
Mira a la izquierda, mira a la derecha. ¿Qué ves? ¿Dónde estás? In a world that seems to change daily, what will you do next? Welcome to the Next Steps Show with Peter Vasquez, a starting point for discussion y un poco de dirección. Mira esto, see? You know, a nation unravels quietly. See, when law forgets justice, when compassion excuses chaos, when data replaces discernment. Mira, amigos, you know, when history is trimmed to fit ideology, and when citizens surrender agency for ease, Mira, what do you think happens? Hey, let me ask you this question, see? What happens when a man trained to argue evidence in court starts arguing for the soul in public? See, mira eso, what a concept, see? Our guest today, mira, he walks two histories, the courtroom and the soul. A former criminal lawyer and a psychotherapist, see, turned spiritual author and activist. He's built a body of work that keeps dragging the spiritual back into the real world. ¿Qué cosa? I mean, we talked about that. See, where consequences live. See, aquí mimito, where people bleed just like it feels to us every day, and where truth costs something. Right? Right here in the Next Step Show, see, con Peter Vasquez and the Voice of Liberty. It is my honor, como siempre, see, to bring to you an awesome guest, an author, el Señor Jeffrey Brown. Señor Brown, thank you for joining me on the Next Step Show. Sí, bienvenido.
Peter, it's so good to hear you and to hear that introduction. I feel inspired to go back and start a new book and get back to work. That was. I think you really captured the feeling of what it is to try to reach a place within your own path where you understand that everybody comes in with something encoded within them that's dying to be excavated and to be actualized. And so much of my work has been about identifying those aspects within myself and others. And, you know, I just really believe that so many of the political tussles that we're subject to wouldn't happen if everybody was truly honoring their encoded path in this lifetime.
100%, you know, and the thing is, Christians call that a purpose. We call, and not even just Christians, just individuals that would believe simply in the fact that God, country, and family exists, and that if we're breathing, if we're alive, then there's purpose to what we do. And the great thing about the work that you do, sir, and really some of the things that we're going to talk about here in the next few minutes, it's inspired me, right? It really solidified this whole concept that I started, you know, a few years ago when I started this show, which was to identify or help people identify, Jeffrey, the balance between faith, politics, and entrepreneurship, and really what that belongs to them so that they can start becoming, well, not just contributing members to society, but individuals that stand tall and firm for their God, country, and their family. And I don't mean with bombs either, sir. Jeffrey, for our listeners, tell us who you are, because again, your work insists spirituality isn't a costume party.
No, I wrote a book called Grounded Spirituality. I really, you know, I wasn't into the notions of spirituality that I identified as self-avoidance that masqueraded as enlightenment. I really believe that my spirituality had to come through and into the heart of my humanness and was not a transcendent experience. There could be transcendent moments, but ultimately you had to come back down into your body and find a way to integrate those experiences into a more actualized experience of your lifetime. So, yeah, I was in law and I was in criminal law. I was articling in Canada. You have to apprentice or article for a year. I articled with a very prominent criminal lawyer in Canada named Eddie Greenspan and did a big murder trial. And just throughout that experience, and even before that experience, some part of me knew that I was going to move on from that place. I was positioned to become the next Eddie, to become a very prominent trial lawyer in Canada. And some part of me just knew that there was something else I was here to do in this lifetime. I think I wanted to reach more people and I could reach in that way. And I was tired. I had grown up in an environment where I was always having to advocate for myself on a very basic level. And I think I did want to advocate, as you know, for something more than that, and that was to advocate for the soul's journey. And even now in the spiritual world, you don't see so much talk about the soul. There was a period when Thomas More and James Hillman and, Douglas, Joseph Campbell and various people, Gene Houston, were talking about it. And lately, as a result of this experience with the Trudeaus and the aftermath of that, I've really been forced back into the question of who am I and why I'm here, and to resonate and connect with God in the way that I did when I was younger, and to ask the deeper and deeper and deeper and more subtle questions of why I'm here. So it's not a generic purpose. It's a really, really particular and specific purpose that your soul comes into this life to actualize. And my next work really is writing the encoding manual model and an audio course, because I think that there's beautiful work out there where we focus on parts and aspects, like, I don't know if you know Dick Schwartz's work with ISS, but the soul is missing from so many of these models. And I think it's really important. I started with my first book, Soul Shaping. I want to move in the direction of ending my books by going back to the soul and bringing everything back to that more subtle question of who are you and why are you here in this lifetime. And so you can reach the end of your life, as Virginia Satir, the great sociologist, look back on your life and say, I did what I came here to do. I think if everybody's moving in that direction, we're living in a very different world.
But in order to say that, you got to know what that is. Ladies and gentlemen, author C. Jeffrey Brown. Today we're going to talk a little bit about your book, In Trudeau's Kitchen. I want to make sure that we highlight that, because your story there is pretty profound. And, I think, if you don't mind, in the future, I'd like to bring you on for a full hour, because the stuff that I've read so far has been beyond intriguing. But first, sir, let me ask you, in a nation where mental health touches 1 in 5 adults, and victimhood seems to have become the leading form of mental health, in my opinion, which is coupled with what we call the Vanbōōlzalness Crisis, right? Distorted truth. What does that mean to become grounded?
I think that's a brilliant question. I think it means to reach a place where you can acknowledge that you've been traumatized, if you have been, where you can acknowledge that you've been a victimizer or victimized or both, and to do the work within that to clear it if it's an obstruction on your path, to heal it if it's healable, and then to reach a place where you come back into life with the energy of that transformation. And you don't of course, it depends what you've been through, right? I mean, I can't speak for every human, but I think to reach a place where you then take the wisdom that's been accrued from that transformative process and the energy that's been freed up, that's been liberated as a result of that process, and ground yourself back in your humanness as something more than just a trauma survivor. I think one of the things that's happened is that, by losing God or by losing some sort of parameters or guardrails with respect to the process on some parts of the left. And I know, because I've been writing for the left. I mean, I wrote 9 books really progressively, right? Within that consciousness. I mean, I attracted the Trudeaus for that reason in terms of my writing. And what I've come to understand is it sometimes, and it has in fact, certainly in Canada, gone much too far. And we're not coming back to the primary question of who are you and why you're here. And it may be that healing some part of your unresolved material is part of why you're here. Healing ancestral material, becoming aware of how it's affected and limited your life and limited your consciousness is helpful. But then to come back down and to ground it in the heart of the question of who are you beyond just a victim and a healer and somebody who's transforming through the emotional process.
Right, so thank you for that, sir. We've got about 4 minutes left or so, and I wanted to make sure we spend some time talking about In Trudeau's Kitchen, Power, Surveillance, and the Politics of Institution. And I believe your publisher is TrineDay at TrineDay.com. What appears to have been a dinner invitation, right, became 4 years of gauntlet. You accepted an invitation, I believe, from Trudeau, the Prime Minister's wife, to support gender equality campaign. And then what followed after that, sir?
Yeah, she invited me for a lunch at the house about a year into our connection, and shared some various things in the kitchen that are detailed in the book that made me uncomfortable and were not appropriate things to be sharing with a vulnerable citizen. And then we continued to relate, and I in some ways enjoyed relating to her. In other ways felt like it was useful. I was bringing words and ideas through them, and particularly through her, that were helpful to the world. That was why I did that. I was volunteering. I wasn't getting paid to do that. But eventually things started to build inside of me, and I longed to return back to a life without being in the crusty political energy. I didn't like the flirting. There were issues around plagiarism. There were a number of things that just didn't feel comfortable, something called future faking. I learned what that meant. And then I made efforts to get away. I made 3 efforts to disconnect from Mrs. Trudeau. And after the second effort, there was a telephone interception that was designed to scare me back from handing binders or a binder of the emails of our interactions to a friend of mine. I wasn't terrified. I was just uncomfortable. I was feeling uncomfortable. And ever since then, pretty much the entire globalist world has joined and united. And that includes, corporations in the U.S. like Meta and Amazon, and even PayPal to an extent, in order to frighten me, terrify me. I use the term techno-terrorism, which I've defined and put up on Urban Dictionary, and they use the term funneling. And this is they use these mechanisms now in order to get somebody to the point where they're either crazy or they die, or they're at the very least will stop moving forward with respect to bringing their story. And because Mark Carney, the current Prime Minister of Canada, is really part of shortening a long game around communizing and making Canada more jihad-esque. My story, for all kinds of different reasons as it unfolded, became a threat to whatever it is that they are presenting to the world, and certainly in Canada. And so many efforts have been made to keep the story away from the public. The audiobook the book on Kindle came out in early December in Canada. It hit number 1 quickly in its new release category, was immediately doubled in price, and you could no longer order the paperback. Last week or the week before, the audiobook finally came out, and I love the audiobook, and it started to move, and it was immediately banished from Amazon. So that's what I'm dealing with. I mean, it's something in Canada. America, you're sort of primed for this, but a big part of my story is just trying to integrate the shock and the awe that this could possibly happen in Canada. And, of course, that's all the more reason why they can get away with it, because none of us will ever believe it when it happens.
Tyranny always masquerades as benevolence. Sir, those are your words. Sir, I'm down to the end of an interview. I'm going to reach out to your guys, bring you back for a little longer. I think people really need to hear about this. TrineDay.com is your publisher. Can they get their book there, sir?
They can get it on Amazon or order it through any bookstore in America.
Author Jeff Brown, thank you so much for your time, sir. May God bless you and keep you safe. Ladies and gentlemen, don't go nowhere, and lines are open. See, 585-346-3000, 866-552-1009. We'll be right back.
WYSL, WLEA, the voice of liberty.
Picture this. A mother of 3 finally turning the key to her first real home. A struggling neighbor no longer sleeping in their car. A child with a warm bed and a full night's sleep. That's the impact of your support.
At Cayuga Housing Council, we're not asking for charity. We're building change. Whether you can give $5 or $5,000, every gift drives real results. Go to CayugaHousingCouncil.org or call me, Peter Vasquez, at 315-536-8707. Together, we're taking a step towards independence, one family at a time.
The Rochester Auto Show, Friday, February 27th through Sunday, March 1st at the Convention Center. Discount tickets at Tops Markets. For details, visit therochesterautoshow.com. Driving tomorrow. The future starts here.
The youth of our city are in a new crisis. Criminal justice reform has created the consequences of no consequences and generated a whole new generation of 12 to 17-year-old kids committing serious crimes. Never before have we had this level of youthful offenders. But 90% of these kids are just trying to do the right thing and need a safe sanctuary to retreat to. That's Rochester Youth for Christ. You can be a part of this by giving generously and regularly at yfcrochester.org/donate.
Peter Vasquez and Next Step Show on the Voice of Liberty.
Oh, we're walking on the non-existent sunshine here on Next Step Show. WYSL, WLEA, brought to you by Youth for Christ Rochester, YFCRochester.org. Here's Peter.
But you know what the cool thing is, though, ladies and gentlemen? Mira, because you listen to the Voice of Liberty, especially at noon. Sí, cuando este puertorriqueño aquí with the Next Step Show is on, makes you cool.
That means, folks, I'm going to do the closed caption here. That means the world-class, super smart and sexy Puerto Rican is here.
Ay, mira, me gusta esto. Sí, suavemente.
See, there you go.
Bésame.
Suavemente, man.
Bob, check it out, though. This is what happens with our listeners, and they got to know this. See? Because they listen to this show and this station. They are the coolest people in the world. And you know this, when you're cool, the sun shines on you 24 horas, 24 hours a day. That is a fact. And check this out. I got a really cool guest coming on for the next couple of segments. And I know that the sun is shining on her because I've seen her work. And check this out, ladies and gentlemen. See? She is an amazing Project 21 ambassador. She is an educator, an author, an advocate. And mira, ladies and gentlemen, see? Because you can't forget this. She is a woman who understands and believes in God, country, and family, and in the United States Constitution, and in a way of life, see, that allows us to be, see, Americanos free. So mira, it is my honor to meet, see, Sonia Morris. Ma'am, thank you for joining me. Bienvenida al Next Step Show.
Thank you for having me, Peter. Happy to be here.
Please tell me that I enunciated your first name correctly. I noticed you abbreviated it there in the email.
Yeah, because most people, including my family, call me Sonia. Plus, it's easier for people, but Oriel, either works as long as you don't call me late for dinner.
I definitely won't do that because that would be mean. So how's everything in the Project 21 world these days, ma'am?
Things are good. You know, we are. I actually was on a hiatus for a while, so thank you for having me on. This is my first interview since I've been back on the ticket. So happy to be here. It's good. It's good. Doing great work, policy work. And as you may know, my background is I have a master's in public policy. So government is my thing. I didn't even know government would be my thing when I was in my undergrad many years ago, 30-something years ago. That I will be doing anything with policy, but my undergrad was in the philosophy of politics and law. I had no interest or no desire for either at that point.
Nothing. We're not going to see Congresswoman Morris coming up anytime soon?
Possibly.
Okay.
We can't talk about politics here, so.
No. That was a simple, innocent question from caring United States citizens. How about that? But listen, your work, in education especially, goes abroad. You taught in China. Yes. You taught U.S. history and Constitution at high schools in Columbia, South Carolina as well. Yes. Tell me something. How's the education system in the United States in comparison to a place like China?
Oh boy, we only have a couple segments here, but just to make it summarize it, it's so much different because over there, and I'm not disparaging our kids here, they have a lot of potential, but over in China, they value education like you wouldn't believe, and a teacher has the level of respect of a parent, or even maybe better in some ways, because the teacher is their way, the way to get the knowledge they need to compete, because the competition is fierce there because of the size of the population. The kids know that they have to do well in order to be able to be successful once they get out of school. So I taught at the college level. I taught U.S. business. And so, they one time, that very early on when I was over there, I went by the classrooms at night, and I thought the kids were having, they were doing night classes. They were actually in the classroom studying. And so, it's a different view. They take their studies seriously. Over here, we kind of take it for granted, especially at the high school level where you're not really paying for high school. And so it's up to us to really inculcate that love for country, love for the Constitution, and to appreciate what we have here in terms of our freedom. Over there, they can't elect their leaders. They have these sham elections sometimes at the local level, but it's nothing. You have to be a party member to get anywhere. So the comparison is very vast, but I believe we can get our public school system back on track, but it's going to take some work.
Let me ask you, over in China, and I won't beat this up, but I don't have too many people on that taught in China recently, though, right? And that happens, or China happens to be in the news quite often as we talk trade deals and war and Greenland and all these other great things, right? However, though, I wonder, because I noticed when I was teaching high school myself, and I'm not a certified teacher, I didn't go to school to be a teacher, I just have a passion for teaching, and I mean, teaching is simple if you got a heart for it. I mean,
that's right.
Anyways, but there was a lot of Chinese students from China here on an internship, or I forgot exactly what it was called. It was like they came and lived with families for a while. But
exchange.
Exchange students. One of them said to me that it's rare that someone from a lower class would be able to participate in something so exciting as working abroad or going to college, or really formal education in general. Is there any validity to that? Because I've never been able to say it or to find anything that validated that with real.
Well, it's true to a degree, because, struggling families are struggling to feed their families. A lot of times the parents of lower class families would actually go into the cities and work at a factory and leave the kids with the grandparents. Those people who come over here, for the most part, they're pretty wealthy, because they have to be able to afford to send them here and keep them. But that is a true statement. That is a true statement. Yes.
Very nice. It's Black History Month, and I want to celebrate you for a few minutes before we get into, great people like, the ones we're going to discuss today, Robert Smalls and others, sir, and yourself. But back in 2024, right, President Biden, during the State of the Union, and his whole babbling self, I call him a buffoon, and sorry if that offends people, but it's a fact, right? But you had said that the administration's failure to secure the southern border made our nation a free-for-all for illegal immigrants, while our citizens are made to pay the price. And the thing is, when you listen to a lot of the people in charge, and this is sad for me, a lot of Hispanic and Black leaders in charge, like mayors and religious leaders, they seem to say that statements like that are incorrect, hateful, and are driving a mantra in this country that is hurting the Black and brown community.
You mean in terms of allowing that influx of people to come in and really take a lot of the jobs that these people would usually have? Well,
that and what we're doing to correct the problem, because again, these people here are saying things like they're hunting us, talking to Puerto Ricans and Blacks, and I'm like, I don't think so.
No, that's a narrative that your average person who has a brain is not going to believe that narrative, but there are those people who do. And they're the ones that the media, the legacy media, is going to put forth, the interview, et cetera. But we know that we're not being hunted. How could that even pass muster? I'm an immigrant, right? We came here 40-something years ago. And, there would be no legal grounds on which you can hold a person who is a citizen of this country. So unless you're criminal, if you're a criminal, you deserve to have some of your rights taken away. But being hunted, those aren't facts, and it's just a part of a narrative that they use to further their cause.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sonia Morris, educator, author, advocate, and amazing 21 ambassador. Mira, you didn't just hear it from me, you hear it from her too. That's what we call here Vanbōōlzalness. See, now we should be talking about people like Thomas Sowell, we should be talking about math musicians like Katherine Johnston, Johnston, or Prince Estabrook, at the Battle of Lexington. The thing is that isn't shared as widely as people, or as the funeral to Jesse Jackson, may he rest in soul. I'm sure he did great things, but his mantra has never uplifted the Black or brown or any community, unlike those three names.
Right. And it's because it's a victim mentality, and that sells. Okay, and that it feeds on the emotionalism of a person, and we're talking about the Black community here. It's unfortunate because that just hurts. I mean, I'm talking about the young people. That hurts them. They need to see these people that they can look up to. Yeah. That they can draw inspiration from. And so it's really sad that we have those people who are, and obviously we're talking about people on the left, because that victim mentality is what gets them their positions of power, et cetera. You need the government's help. You need, they so low expectations into the Black community, and that's unfortunate. And that's where people like me come in. Listen, I'm not going to be popular, but that's okay, because kids' lives are going to turn around.
You know something, I'll tell you, ladies and gentlemen, if rather than dividing citizens by race, imagine if we just sat here and said, Mira, let's just focus on each other's right gifts, kind of like we talked in the previous segment. See, ladies and gentlemen, Sonia Morris, an amazing Project 21 ambassador. Lines are open, 585-346-3000. Mira, give us a call, Sonia. We'll be right back, okay? Don't go nowhere, ladies and gentlemen.
WYSL, WLEA, the voice of liberty.
We are family. I got all my sisters with me. We are family. Get up, everybody, and sing. We are family. I got all my sisters with me.
Radio home of the Bonnies.
WYSL.
Avon, Rochester, WLEA, WLEA FM, Hornell, New York. Canisteo Valley Update.
Alfred University's political science professor emeritus Dr. Bob Heinemann is weighing in on the whole idea of a billionaire's tax in New York State. Governor Kathy Hochul said yesterday she does not want to have a billionaire's tax. New York City Mayor Zoran Mandami says if the governor does not tax the wealthy, he will in turn then raise New York City taxes by about 10%. Dr. Bob Heinemann.
The idea that Mamdani can in fact tell Governor Hochul how much tax he can raise is ludicrous. Of course, Mamdani is a little new here at the job, so we can expect some of that. Now, he can raise taxes, I guess, however he wants in New York City. But Hochul, I think, legitimately is looking at the entire state.
That was Alfred University political science professor emeritus Dr. Bob Heinemann. Brian O'Neill for the Voice of Liberty.
Here's the latest forecast from the News 10 NBC Weather Center for tonight. Any wintry mix or snow showers will taper off. Temperatures in the upper 20s. On Thursday, mostly cloudy. Pretty quiet day overall. Temperatures in the 30s on Friday. Going to be turning slightly milder. There might be a brief wintry mix, but then primarily some rain showers in the 40s. Then colder in the 30s with snow showers this weekend. I'm Rich Canilia for the Voice of Liberty.
When you think chicken, think Stearns Poultry Farm Stores. Stearns Poultry Farm Stores with 2 locations, Seneca Street, Hornell, and Route 244 in Alfred Station. Stearns, the best chicken in these parts.
FM Talk.
You'll be comfortable with the best. Turnbull Heating and Air.
Turnbull Heating and Air celebrates 60 years of service, expertise, and reliability in Western New York. Get $750 off any newly installed heating or cooling system. And Turnbull also wants to reach out to experienced HVAC residential and commercial technicians, as well as those just starting that career, to join our family of experts. The path to your future on the Turnbull team can include tuition reimbursement, paid training, and potential apprenticeships. Call Turnbull about your future as an HVAC tech at 585-501-9100. 585-501-9100. Keeping Western New Yorkers comfortable with the best.
Yes, to your question.
Turnbull Heating and Air.
You'll be comfortable with the best. Turnbull Heating and Air.
The youth of our city are in a new crisis. Criminal justice reform has created the consequences of no consequences and generated a whole new generation of 12 to 17-year-old kids committing serious crimes. Never before have we had this level of youthful offenders, but 90% of these kids are just trying to do the right thing and need a safe sanctuary to retreat to. That's Rochester Youth for Christ. You can be a part of this solution by giving generously and regularly at yfcrochester.org/donate.
Are you new to town and resorting to big box stores and online shopping to revamp your home? Get big city experience and unlimited options at Decorator's Choice in Hornell. We offer the largest selection of flooring in the area with installation. From custom furniture and window treatments to Benjamin Moore paints and products, our design team will create your dream space. Shop your entire sleep system with our split head and traditional mattresses, offering bedding and pillow lines for your best night's sleep. Decorator's Choice has everything you need to revamp your space. Visit our showroom at 37 Seneca Street in Hornell and like us on Facebook.
The Hornell Republican Committee is proud to announce the 83rd Annual Lincoln Day Dinner, Friday, February 27th. Join us at the main place in Hornell, the social hour kicking off at 5:30, followed by the dinner at 6:30. Tickets are just $45 per person. Hear from your favorite state and local Republican representatives, and don't miss our keynote speaker, Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard. RSVP today by emailing hornellgop@gmail.com and join us for an unforgettable evening.
For over 100 years, families and businesses across Western New York have trusted one name, Doyle Security Systems. From smart home security and surveillance to fully customized commercial intrusion, fire, and video, Doyle protects what matters most, day and night. We're not just another security company, we are your neighbor. We're proud to serve this region we call home, family-owned, locally trusted, always on guard. Secure your home or business with Doyle Security Systems, protection trusted for generations. Call 1-866-GO-DOYLE or visit GoDoyle.com today.
Copytown Enterprise in Lima, locally owned. Printing, scanning, banners, signs, labels, forms, tickets, and more. Copytown can print from mobile devices. Copytown Enterprise, East Main Street at the Crossroads in Lima. Open Tuesday through Friday, 10 to 5.
Peter Vasquez and Next Step Show on the Voice of Liberty.
Ahí sí, por seguro, ladies and gentlemen. Here, real quick, side note. Today is National Drink Wine Day. You know that this was established back in 2007 by an enthusiast named Todd McCullough? Or McCullough? Jeepers. That was a bad pronunciation. Check this out, ladies and gentlemen. Drinking wine in the Bible in Psalms 104, 14 and 15 says this, or says something like this. It gladdens the heart of the man. But let's look at Proverbs 20, verse 1, where it warns you. Wine is a mocker. Whoever is led astray by it is not wise. Mira, enjoy National Drink Wine Day, ladies and gentlemen. In case you didn't know, that production of wine dates back 8,000 years. Mira, that's historical. Enjoy it, but enjoy it wisely. Mira, welcoming back to the show is our honorable guest, C. Sonia Morris, C. Project 21 Ambassador. Ma'am, thank you so much for joining me today on the Next Step Show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. And today this month, we're celebrating Black History Month in 2026. Also, right, shares something with the overall celebration in this country, which is 250-year anniversary, correct? And the thing is, Black History Month this year is themed as a century of Black history commemorations throughout, century of acknowledging Black achievements and so on and so forth. Can I ask you a question, ma'am? And maybe you can answer this, and please be straightforward with it. What's the purpose of celebrating any particular demographics achievements like Black history, Hispanic history, or even white history for that matter?
Well, I believe the purpose is to recognize a particular people and their contributions, because really what we're talking about is American history, right? Mm-hmm. And so it just gives extra information to people who may not know, because this is not going to be taught in schools, et cetera. For instance, I just found out about, certain people while I was teaching American history, because it's not really celebrated. It's not seen as it's not taken to the appreciated as much as it should be. So I that's the reason, to let your average person know what the contributions of some of these different ethnic groups are. But it really is all American history.
100%. So let me ask you, right? Because I believe that sometimes, because we do highlight some of these accomplishments, right, and we put a skin color to it, right, with respect, we end up with things like, the Urban League, ABC, Iberia, all these organizations that claim to focus on one specific community instead of the community at large. And then worse, they end up taking things like Dr. Martin Luther King's legacy, and they try to spend things like DEI. I've read reports that people try to focus on things like Dr. King being, not being exactly what he says he is. And that's why I asked that question. But you also called out, ma'am. You asserted that the left tends to Well, kind of misaligned again, these policies saying that Dr. King would be in favor of critical race theory and that it wouldn't disadvantage and that they need to have government help. But that is furthest from the truth, isn't it? And let me ask you this as well. If he did have a dark side, does it matter?
Well, does it take away from his accomplishments and what he contributed to the civil rights movement? Listen, everybody has a dark side. Obviously, we're not going to get into, what some of the, what people say about him, but it really doesn't take away so much. As long as we focus on that, I think that's fine. To be perfectly honest, why would he agree with CRT? It directly goes against his thesis and what he lived, right? That you should not judge someone by their skin color, but by the contents of their character. If CRT racializes everything.
Yes, it does.
It makes everything about skin color. So that is definitely an untruth.
It politicizes everything as well, taking away the individual and putting the government in charge of things that are going on. And the thing is this, I figured this, you're right. We all have a closet. And most of our closets are pretty darn full to the point where the door may burst open, especially as older as we get. But God says this, right? Do the things that you are supposed to do for the neighbor and live a life as best as you can, like me. So are we going to make mistakes? But then we can forgive, right? Like Jesus did.
Right. Well, that was going to be my point. Thank God for Jesus, who puts us back, gives us a clean slate, puts us back on, on good ground. But I pray that, but before the ends of his life, he asked for forgiveness for whatever those things were that were in his closet. But you know what? I can't judge the man. I don't know where he is. I don't know anything about that. It's like we can certainly appreciate what he has done to contribute to history.
Well, I'll tell you, for our listeners, I say this, I say that his words wouldn't be as powerful as they are today if God didn't say that they were going to be as powerful as they are today. And that's enough for me. Mm-hmm. Robert Smalls, Courage in Charleston Harbor, ma'am. Born enslaved in Beaufort, South Carolina on April 5th, 1839 during the Civil War. And he worked abroad, right? A Confederate steamer, a planter, I guess. And then he learned navigation routes and he did something that dumbfounded many people. I call it achieving your American dream.
Right.
Tell us what he did.
This guy was your true hero. We have people today who, in government, sports stars and people like that who want to be heroes. But this guy was a true hero. He risked everything. Now, here, consider this. He's working on the planter. He's working on this Confederate ship. And for a year, he's just observing what's going on, just taking it in. Can you imagine how brilliant this guy must have been? And so they take a chance that they actually took the ship. And he pretended to be the captain, got himself all cloaked up, pretended to be the captain. And get this, goes through 5 checkpoints because they're trying to get to freedom to the Union side of things. Goes through 5 checkpoints. That last checkpoint was Fort Sumter. And the temptation was, we've got to change the course because we have to get too close to Fort Sumter. We're going to be seen and we're going to be caught. And the wisdom of the ages, he said, no, we're going to stay the course and take our chances. And they escaped. But you would think that that's it, right? That's amazing. He's a hero. He gets everybody, he and his family and his colleagues' families to safety to get to, and actually the Union was able to actually in turn use the ship for their purposes. So, but you would think that was it. No, this man goes on to be a legislator in the House here in South Carolina, and he later goes on to be a U.S. senator. But not only that, though, while he was a state legislature, he wrote and authored the legislation that mandated public schools here in South Carolina. I believe it was the first state to do that. So we've got a great legacy in this man, and he really should be heralded.
The first thing, or what he's famous for replying when he was met by the, by the good side, the Union commander, the words were, might be of some use to Uncle Abe is what this freeing slave that freed his family and so many others. You know, yes. I'll tell you, this is why I love what I do, man. You know, I believe that renewal begins when ordinary people choose truth over comfort and responsibility over applause. And that last part, the responsibility over applause, is something that I wished I saw a lot more black pastors doing versus the roll out the red carpet for me before you come, before I come see you kind of stuff.
And is that what Christ did? He said, listen, I came to serve, not be served. But they've turned that around, and I could have said that my hero is Nick Shirley or Mike Winger, the one who's actually exposes corruption in the church and the one exposing corruption of the government and et cetera. So to be perfectly honest, Robert Smalls had all the excuses in the world not to do what he did. Mm-hmm. I'm a slave. I'm just gonna get by. But today, we've got this entitlement mentality that make everything easy for me, and I'm not going to risk anything, but I just want all the goods, all the blessings to come to me. And that's unfortunate because great people accomplish great things because they take great risks.
Ladies and gentlemen, see, that is Sonia Morris, educator, author, advocate, and amazing Project 21 ambassador. Man, I'm going to pay some bills. I'm going to come right back. And when we get back, I want to ask you this question. See, why did we have to persuade President Lincoln to allow blacks to serve in the Union Army? We'll be right back right here in the Next Step Show. See, no te vayas, give us a call, 585-346-3000, 866-552-1009, and the Voice of Liberty.
This step is starting now. It's the same feeling I always seem to get over.
At Cayuga Housing Council, we offer real help when it matters most. Whether you're facing foreclosure, stuck in an unsafe mobile home, need rental counseling, or critical repairs, we guide families through stability and home ownership. Visit CayugaHousingCouncil.org and take your step forward toward independence.
Cornhole at a pickleball tournament? Yes! Register for Youth for Christ Picklepalooza 2026, Saturday, April 25th, 3 to 7 p.m. Dakers in East Rochester. Beginners and all levels welcome. Not a pickleballer? Join our cornhole tourney. Fabulous pizza and treats from Proyetti's. Pickleball, $75 single, $125 team. Cornhole, $40, $75 a team. Saturday, April 25th, 3 to 7 p.m. at Dakers in East Rochester. Register today at yfcrochester.org/pickle.
Peter Vasquez and Next Step Show on the Voice of Liberty.
Proudly brought to you by Youth for Christ Rochester. Just heard about them with Minister Mike there. YFCRochester.org. Again, here's Peter.
Saving more lives, I'll tell you that, man. Senor Mike is doing. Mike, thank you for all the work you do. You know something, Sonia? Mike, it runs this organization called Youth for Christ here in Rochester, New York, man. No tax dollars whatsoever. And do you know that man is, and I can't say single-handedly because he's formed a team single-handedly to do this, saving more black and brown lives from zip codes that are the poorest in the nation and zip codes that politicians have said, we just need to give them money.
Throwing money at the problem.
That's it.
Like that solves it.
Well, they seem to think on the left that tell me, look at Mandami in New York. We're not talking politics, pointing a fact here, ma'am, right? His call, right, for a solution in the budget is to raise taxes instead of saying, hey, where can we cut? Where can we be fiscally responsible, hold people accountable, and bring those people back into the equation so that they too can contribute to the tax base so that everybody can prosper? What a concept. Ma'am, let me share this number. 285,000 black-owned employers, black-owned employer business operated in 2023. That's 36% of the black civilians workforce here in the United States. The median black household income stood at $57,200 in 2022. But this is the best part that I want to mention, because this is critical for our nation, man. there were 2,035,520 Black veterans in 2024. Ma'am, that is an army that can take over any country, and they're here in the United States serving God, country, and family. That's Black history, in my opinion.
That's right. And all about the contribution to the larger picture, because it's really not just about Blacks, right? I mean, we're not in a bubble all by ourselves, and we have to learn to exist with each other. We all came from the same two people, right? Yeah. So at the end of the day, we're all related and we're all connected. But that solution to keep taxing people and keep throwing money at a problem, no, why not manage the money that you're already getting more responsibly, as you said, being more fiscally responsible. So, but we know his ideals are basically government pays for everything. Everything is free, and let the people who are actually working hard pay for everything for everybody else. And we know that doesn't work. It's never worked. Didn't work in Venezuela, didn't work in Cuba, it's never worked. But somehow, every once in a while, you have these people who think they can get it to work.
Well, you said that very nicely. I think I would have called it tyranny, communism. I'd probably say the end result or the equity part is what we see in Afghanistan and Iran and even in places like Qatar and Kuwait that are allies. Those places aren't any better. They just deal with us economically a little better. That's all.
Right, exactly.
So before break, I said that, this fine gentleman, Robert Smalls, had to, in the work that he did, his daring escape provided a lot of intelligence to the government. But yet, before this, Black men, or women for that matter, weren't serving in the Union Army. What changed? And to my question before break, in your opinion, why do you think President Lincoln, of all people, had to be persuaded?
I believe, Lincoln's one of his main concerns, and the reason why after the Union Army won, he still, like the Republicans in Congress, wanted to punish the South for what they did. But his deal was always, let's keep the Union together. Let's not upset things to the point of, we break this thing apart that the founders put together. And so I believe perhaps, they were concerned with too much of a rebellion amongst the slaves, possibly. They were concerned with, keeping the peace and keeping things. Yes, we're at war, but let's accomplish what we need to accomplish in the best way possible without causing too much of disturbance. So I believe that's the case. Other people may differ in their opinion, but I don't believe he was thinking that Black people were any less able to fight, but he was concerned about keeping things, keeping the peace.
Right. And I'm glad you bring that up because, see, even the most, well, in some cases, I guess I can't say all of them, but even the most moral, the most grounded individual at times is faced with a decision whether or not it's right for the country. And at that time, the country was dealing with. But what I like about Lincoln is that he did listen. He did say, oh, okay, wait a minute. I saw this the wrong way and the other side was wrong. And why can't politicians do that now instead? Well, we all know why. It's called Vanbōōlzalness, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, a lot of it is pride. I mean, Washington is the epitome of pride. And, I was watching something the other day, and actually it was another lawmaker in Washington, D.C., basically talking about exactly that. There's this facade they have to keep up that they know everything. Well, apparently some of the smartest people are in Washington running the country, but look at the state of the country. Thank God for the new administration, but he's still having to deal with, look at what's going on in Congress, the partial shutdown, all of this. You guys are the smartest ones in the country and you still can't get it together. So, well, we know that's not the case, right? We've got some individuals who are obviously not so smart that they got there anyway. But yeah, they're not able to admit these things.
I agree. I was listening to AOC overseas. And
that's what I was thinking about.
Yeah, and I'm just, I have to chuckle at these people. Hey, in an age of revisionism, right? Who benefits when acts like heroism, like what Smalls did, is well minimized or just completely erased? I mean, I can tell you again, using my own hometown, Rochester, New York, as reference, we had at our beach here, because we're on Lake Ontario, there was a roundabout, and one of those pictures, it depicted a field of watermelons, and in the background, a young, black-skinned individual, a young boy. Right? And they removed it because they said it was the most racial insulting thing for our community. But what say you on that?
So what about Aunt Jemima? It's so ridiculous.
Same concept.
So you have to change facts just because I think, people are too flaky.
No.
And I believe what they're doing is they're trying to make act as if Black people are not regular people. If I need the government to help me in this, that, and the other thing, well, then you're not seeing me. It's right. That in itself is racism because you're not seeing me as equal. Why can't we have a little Black boy with watermelon? It's ridiculous.
But let me ask, and I say this respectfully, but isn't watermelon a culturally relevant item anyways, or not?
For Black people, I mean.
Or Hispanics, because I'll tell you, I love me my watermelon, and they grow them all over the place in Puerto Rico, as I understand.
Yeah, and to be honest, I didn't actually like watermelon until after my dad passed. Like, I find that I would eat more popcorn. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, I mean, it's also personal taste. So it
is.
But the thing is, even if it was cultural, so what?
I agree. But it teaches, and we could never repeat. Well, hang on. We could never ensure we don't repeat the bad from our past if we don't teach it in the future. And lessons that we learned. I mean, how many school children today in America, especially, even know the name Robert Smalls? I think you led to that earlier. But more importantly, what does that say for how we teach here in America? I mean, New York State, Rochester, my little home city here, home to about, I think the city has about over 200 population, 60% of that is Black. We have the worst school district in the state, highest paid board in the entire nation, Sonia.
Oh my.
Isn't that insane?
Yeah, so it goes back to the fact of not managing whatever money you're getting. Yeah, I believe, this may be a little controversial, that it's purposeful, that we're trying to dumb them down, make them a particular class, make them not strive for excellence, give them all this technology so that they're not thinking for themselves. I mean, cheating is at an all-time high with technology. And I was one of those teachers. I'm one of those teachers that you're not going to cheat in my classroom. So it's really terrible not trying to educate kids to the degree that they can actually be educated. So
I love technology. I am starting to like AI. I'm finding it like a glorified Google search or something, but people are telling me I'm underusing it. But I believe in teaching the basics first, so that those tools remain tools and not consuming. Mark S. Turner is a listener we have in the West Coast in California. He said, read Robert Woodson's book. We had Robert Woodson here a few years ago in Rochester. Huge crowd showed up. Do you know who he is?
Robert Woodson. I'm not sure if you could mention what he does.
Well, I'll tell you what. If you look up the book, Red, Black, and White, right? It's a reoccurring American history from revisionists to race hustlers. It's the 1619 Project where it praises.
Yes.
You got to check out the book. This guy is phenomenal on the team that they do. Man, we're down to like the last 2 minutes. Do you mind sharing a call of action and what I like to call next steps advice with our listeners before we sign off?
Sure. I would say to your average American that, let's remain aware of what's actually transpiring in the country without listening to the legacy media. Do your own research. And when you vote according to your own values, not according to somebody else's. And I would speak to parents to become involved in their kids' education and know exactly what's being taught in the classroom, and that it reflects their values. We've been given a country, we've been given freedom, and we need to keep it. And it's going to take some work to keep it.
Ma'am, thank you so much for your time. Sonia Morris, educator, author, advocate, and amazing Project 21 ambassador. See project21.org. Ma'am, thank you for your time, and may God bless you, and all the work that you continue to do.
Thank you, Peter, and God bless you and your team as well.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Joshua 1:9. See, be strong, be courageous, do not be afraid, do not be discouraged, for the Lord God will be with you wherever you go. See, be a leader, be a leader, be a leader. God bless these United States of America, and don't let a second go by where you are not a voice for libertad.
Con alma de hombre, quiero amarte para siempre, pero tú no me respondes, soy cara de niño. Con alma de hombre, ven, conóceme, te reto, y hay amor para que te sobre.
Victor Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram helps you conquer the snow and cold with Go Anywhere